What's happening, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Ford Explorer Limited. This thing is a second trim level up, but it's got a ton to it. It's powered by a 2.3 liter EcoBoost engine, so a turbo engine. It gives us 310 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque. This thing is a cannon for the engine size. Couple things to point out in the Limited. It's got a true leather seat on there, but it's also perforated, which means we've got heated and cooled front seats. Really, really convenient when you get those hot summer days. Looking at the one behind us, it does have a seat configuration for 6 people. On the Explorer, you can get up to 7 people in there, just depending on what you do with that center row. Upgraded Limited package gives us 20-inch tires, which look incredible. Let's have a little bit of fun. Take a peek at this vehicle, see what it's got to offer. There we go. Now looking underneath the hood of this thing, as I mentioned, this specific one is powered by a 2.3 liter turbo engine, so the EcoBoost engine. The Explorer also does come with the available hybrid engine. However, this one obviously is not the hybrid. But looking inside here, a couple things that you can do yourself. If you need to, you can fill up the windshield wiper fluid yourself. You can kind of check the engine oil as well. It is a little bit further in the back here, so it doesn't make it quite as convenient, but at the same time, if you're a handy person, you'll figure it out. Let's have a little bit of a quicker peek, a bigger peek I should say, inside. Now, one of the nice things about the Explorer is that it does use regular gas. You can get away with using 87 octane. Looking at it on the driver's side here, as you can see, we do have the gas cap. All we're going to do is press and open up, and then as you can see here, we've got a capless system as well. So all you're going to do, take that fuel hose, you're going to pop it in, and you're set to go. Now, looking at the Explorer, if you are considering towing anything, I absolutely recommend getting the tow package from the factory. You're looking at about $600 Canadian to make that happen. But with this 2.3 liter EcoBoost engine, you're looking at being able to tow up to 5,300 pounds. It's amazing. A couple other things to point out in the back here. We do have a backup camera, and the Limited does have a reverse sensing system. So as you can see, we've got a number of sensors around the back of the vehicle. There are sensors in the front of the vehicle, and then we've also got a camera on the side view mirrors as well. That's going to give us the ability to have a full 360-degree view, which I will show you as we get into the inside. Here we go, taking a peek at the key fob here to start. So we've got our unlock button, our lock button, remote start, our tailgate, or our liftgate I should say, as well as our horn or a panic alarm button. Now there is also the ability to pop out our emergency access key. So if for whatever reason you can't get access to the vehicle, you need to jump start it, I should say. You can use this remote access key in order to get access to the vehicle. Pop it back into place there. In order to be able to remote start it, all we're going to do is press the lock button once and then the circle button here twice. Really straightforward there. And then in order to be able to cancel the remote start, all we're going to do is press this circle button here once. That cancels it out. In order to open up the trunk on this thing, there's a few different ways that we can do it. Looking at the key fob here, we can press this button here twice in order to unlock it. Or let me show you a few ways on the outside of the vehicle. So if we take a look at the Explorer badging here, right next to the R, we see a little arrow pointing down. Just underneath that, there is a trunk release there, so we can press that button in order for the power liftgate to activate. Now, having said that, it is a power liftgate and it's got foot-activated lifting capability. So, key fob in your pocket if you've got bags full of groceries, kids, or if you've got your golf club slung over your shoulder, all you're gonna do, wave your foot underneath and take a step back. There we go. And as you can see, it's gonna lift up for us there. Let's have a little bit of a peek inside. Okay, starting off, looking in the back here. So we do have all 3 rows that are up. So obviously the front row is going to stay regardless. You can fold the middle row or this back row down. But starting off looking here, as you can see, we've got a little bit of storage space in the back. Lifting this tray up underneath, we've got a little protector here. We lift the protector up and we grab this tab here. And as you can see, we've got a spare tire underneath and the jack is right underneath that. So we can drop that back down. Now, one of the nice things about the tray is that it is fully removable. We can drop it down into the back here if we want that little bit of extra space. And then we've got these little guys on the side that are also fully removable as well too. Again, if you need that extra little bit of storage space. Now the seats in the back here are power foldable. That's one of the nice things about the limited trim level. Looking at the XLT, we would manually have to lift these seats up and then put them down, but not in the limited. If we look off to the passenger side, just in the back here, we've got 3 different buttons: our left, our center, and then our right button. So the center button is going to fold down the left and the right seats in the back here. So all we're going to do is press that button, hold it for a second, and as you can see, power down. We can fold them down individually, or you can pull them back up individually as well. So let's give that a try. So pressing the left button there, as you can see, the left seat's coming back up. Then same idea, pulling that right seat back up individually. A little bit further back here, as you can see, we've also got a traditional cigarette lighter adapter. So if you need to plug anything in the back here, you've got that flexibility to be able to do that. Right, now one thing to take into account is that if you do have taller passengers, looking at the bench seat in the middle here, it will make it a little bit more challenging to get into the back. Now, having said that, once you're back here, there actually is a surprisingly large amount of room. So if we look here, so I'm 6 feet tall, so a little over 6. So looking, I've got about 1 inch of headroom there, and I still have a little bit of room for my knee. It's not a lot, but at the same time, knowing that if you've got passengers that are a little bit taller, they'll be able to comfortably sit back here on that 3rd row in the Explorer. Now, when it comes to this middle row, you've got a couple different options when it comes to the look. So the one that we're sitting in right now is the bench seat, so it does give us 3 full-size seats. Now, as I mentioned, I'm 6 feet tall, and I still do have about 1.5 inches, roughly 2 inches of headroom in this middle seat here. You do have an option, if you're okay with the 6-seater, of getting a dual captain's chairs instead, and then this center seat essentially would go away. Now, one thing to point out about the center seats here is that you can adjust them, so you can bring them back and forward if you need a little bit more room for people in the back, or if you need a little bit more room for people that have longer legs. Looking along the left-hand side here on the driver's side, it would be on the right-hand side of the passengers. We can also adjust that backrest. So if you need to have a seat that's a little bit more comfortable for that taller passenger, you've got the capability to do that. As we move back a little bit more here, so as I mentioned, this one here does have the bench seat in the middle. So as we pop down this seat here, as you can see, we do have some cup holders, so that's really, really handy. And looking at the limited version, the center seat unfortunately is not going to be heated. Having said that, the driver's side and the passenger side in that 2nd row are. Looking, in order to be able to turn that on, we've got our buttons here in order to be able to do that. We've got our fan control, so people in the back do have the capability and the flexibility to be able to control the fan speed. They can control whether it's hot or cold, and then you can determine whether or not the fan is blowing towards your face or to your feet. If we move down just a little bit, as you can see here, we've got our traditional USB port as well as our USB-C, so a lightning port. And then off to the right-hand side, we've got a traditional wall outlet. One other thing to point out in the back, we do have a little bit of storage space in the back and behind the driver and the passenger side front seats. Looking at the Explorer Limited in the back seats here, as you can see, we also do have a shade, which is really, really nice for those sunny days if you've got folks in the back seat here. So it's really, really nice on the driver and the passenger side. And all we have to do is lift that up, walk it back down into place. Now, looking at the driver's side door here, there's a few things to point out. Now, one of the nice things about the Limited is that we do have the upgraded sound system. So it's a 12-speaker B&O sound system. It sounds incredible. Up at the top here, we've got our traditional unlock and our lock buttons. Now, one of the nice things about the Limited is that it also does have seat memory. So we've got 3 different options there. All you have to do, set your seat up, set the steering wheel up, set the side view mirrors up to your liking. Once that's done, press and hold the button for about 2-3 seconds or so. You'll hear a beep and your seat memory is going to be saved. Moving down here a little bit, few things. This top left button here is going to fold that side view mirror in, both on the driver and passenger side. This one here is going to close out or essentially lock out the back windows. So with that on, the back windows won't be able to get rolled down from passengers in the back seat. From here, we've got the ability to adjust our side view mirrors. Whatever one is highlighted is going to be the mirror that we're going to be adjusting. And then we've got our directional pad in order to be able to actually adjust the mirror. Moving down a little bit, we've got our traditional window buttons for the driver, passenger side, and the front and the back. Now, looking at the driver's side, in order to be able to adjust the seat, it's actually really, really simple. So looking along our left-hand side of the drivers, right-hand side of the passengers, we've got a series of levers. So this very front one here, if we push it forward, it's gonna move the seat forward. We can move ourselves backwards by pushing back. If we want to get a little bit lower because of our headroom, we can push the lever down, or opposite side of it. If you're a little bit vertically challenged, we can also lift it up in order to bring that seat up a little bit higher. Next one here is going to be for our back, so we can bring that backrest forwards or backwards, just depending on your liking. And the last one is going to be our power lumbar support. So really, really good for those longer distance trips. In order to be able to adjust the steering wheel, it is power adjustable and it's telescopic. So just by that turning signal, a little bit further down, we've got another directional pad. So we can move the steering wheel away from us, towards us, up or down. And then again, once you've got your seat set up, your steering wheel set up, and your side view mirrors, press and hold 1, 2, or 3 on the driver's door in order to be able to remember your personal settings. Now, looking off to the left-hand side of the steering wheel here, we do have a few buttons to look at. This first one here is going to be for our trunk. So another way to be able to open that up, all we're going to do is press that button there. It's going to pop the trunk open for us. Moving over, let's start off on these dimmer switches here. So we've got a plus and a minus button. So these buttons here are going to allow us to make the screen darker or brighter. That's going to be for the instrument cluster, as well as for that Sync 3 screen. Last one that I'm going to point out are going to be our lights. So, pressing in is going to turn on the fog lights in the front, and then we've also got a selector switch to go between a few different settings. So there's really only 2 that I want you to be concerned about. The one at the very top is going to turn the lights off, or we can drop down to an auto setting. Auto setting is automatically going to turn on the daytime or the nighttime lamps, depending on what time of day it is. So depending on how bright it is, it's going to adjust those lamps for you. So I do recommend keeping it in the auto setting and let the car do the work for you. In order to be able to start the vehicle up, it is push button start. You need to make sure that your foot's on the brake there, and we're just going to press this engine start stop button here. It's going to adjust your seat to your liking there. There we go. Excellent. Okay. So let's start off looking at the Sync 3 infotainment system here. So the vehicle does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so you can hook a phone up, whether that's Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, so you can use either or here. But this is the screen that you're typically going to be met with when you first start the vehicle up. So a couple things to point out, we do have our navigation here. We've got the radios here, so whatever, it's actually really going to be whatever source that we're currently using, whether that's going to be AM, FM, Sirius XM, running off of our phone, whatever the case may be, it will show up here. We've got the capability to add a phone here, or we can add a phone in the menu here. Jumping into our audio settings. Looking here, we can change our sources, so whether that's AM, FM, Sirius, or Bluetooth, if our phone was connected, it would also show up here. We've got the ability to do direct tune. So you can tune to a radio station. Manually doing this, you can use the tuning knob down here, or you can use the voice activated button, I should say, that's on the steering wheel. In order to be able to save a preset, it's really straightforward. All we're going to do is change to whatever station you'd like to, and then you're just going to press and hold, and then as you can see there, the preset's now been saved. So you do have the ability as a default to save up to 10 presets, but if you want to be able to save more, you're just going to go to settings, into radio, and we've got our preset pages here, so we can go up to 30 different presets. So we've updated it. It's going to take a second there to kick in. And if we go to audio now, as you can see, we've got up to 30 individual presets. Looking at the bottom here, looking at phone, so as you can see, there isn't a phone that's currently attached. Let's go through the process in order to do that now. This process is going to be the same whether you're running off of an iPhone or Android, so I am running an iPhone here. So we're going to make sure that our Bluetooth is first turned on. Perfect, and we're just going to hit add phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Okay, and giving it just a second, there we go at the very bottom here, as you can see the Explorer is showing up. So you're just going to press.
The pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
Perfect, and as you can see there, the numbers are the same, so we're going to say pair and yes.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
There we go. And looking here, lastly on the screen, as you can see, allow contacts and favorites. Absolutely. We're connecting the phone, so we want to make sure that the vehicle knows who our contacts are. Next up here, we've got a few options. So 911 assist, the only way that that's going to work is if your phone's connected, and then the ability for the vehicle to auto download your contacts. I absolutely recommend keeping that one on because it'll automatically download your contacts for you when you connect your phone. Hitting finish here, and as we can see, my phone's been connected, so we can see my recent calls, contacts, we can change devices. So if you're running with multiple devices that are connected to the vehicle, in order to be able to remove it, what we can do is we can jump into our settings here and look at phone. But before we do that, I want to show you one more thing, just as the screen goes away here. We've now got some mobile apps. Actually, let's jump into our apps here. So enable mobile apps, we can enable or disable. But if we go to our apps here. So the apps here, as we can see, we've got LiveX Live. So it's a radio app on my cell phone. You can use Spotify, you can use the Waze app, things like that, and those will be directly put onto the center console screen here. So you can control it through the screen here instead. Really, really neat feature. In order to be able to remove a phone, we're just going to go to our settings here and jump into phone. We can view devices, we can manage contacts, we can look at a number of options there. Going to view devices, we can click on the phone that you've connected, and then you can either disconnect or you can completely remove it. So let's remove the phone there. There we go. And jumping back into phone, as you can see, it's been removed from the vehicle. Moving into our navigation settings down here. Navigation really, really straightforward. All we're going to do is hit search, and we can type in an address from there. So let's use the address of the dealership. And what I'd recommend is start typing, don't type the full address because it does auto-complete for you. We're just going to press that button there. Perfect. And now what we can do, we can either save it as a favorite by pressing this little star button, or we can start to begin the navigation.
Obey traffic laws, be alert, and use voice commands while driving. Please proceed to the highlighted route, and then the route guidance will start.
There we go. So a couple things to point out here. So if you want to cancel the existing directions that you're doing, so the existing route, all we're going to do is press this X button at the top here in order to cancel. So that route's now been canceled out. So really, really straightforward there. And bumping back up into controls here, let's go into our menu now. So menu, we've got a number of different options available there. So screen view is a matter of personal preference, whether it's the full map or just the highway exit info. We can look at traffic lists, our navigation settings, into our map preferences here. So big one to point out is going to be the POI icon. So whether or not you want gas stations or things like coffee shops, things like that to show up, it's again personal preference. Moving into our route preferences here. So we can either go the fastest, eco-friendly, or the shortest route. And then at the very bottom, we've got the ability to avoid freeways, toll roads, ferries, or tunnels. So what that'll do is if you're not a fan of driving on toll roads, we can go avoid toll roads, and then it'll navigate, essentially making sure that we don't hit toll roads in that route. Other one to point out in our navigation preferences, so the big one is going to be our guidance prompts, so whether we get a voice and tone, a voice, or the tone. Guess it helps if I press the button there. All right, so again, matter of personal preference, and that's going to be what happens as we get closer to one of the turns that we need to make. And that's going to be our navigation there. Other one to point out in the back here, we've got the ability to add a home or a work address. Where that comes into play is if you navigate home, or if you're not 100% sure where you should be going, if your home or work address is saved, you can press the voice guidance button on the steering wheel and say navigate home, navigate to work, and it's automatically going to set that up for you. Really, really neat feature. Moving into our settings now. So we've got quite a few settings to go through here. First one is going to be our sound settings. So we do have the ability to change up the treble, mid-range, or bass. Next up is our clock. So as you can see here, clock settings, we're in our traditional 12-hour mode. If you have a preference to go into that military time, you can do that from here. We've got the ability now to do time zone update as well. So where that comes into play is if you're driving to the East Coast, to the West Coast, whatever the case may be, with the auto time zone update, it's automatically going to update the time zone for you, which is really, really neat. So if you're going to the East Coast, etc., it's automatically going to do that. So I do recommend, it's actually, keep that setting on as a default because it's really, really useful to do. Moving into Bluetooth here, so we can either turn Bluetooth off, I should say, completely. We can add a Bluetooth-enabled device from this screen here as well, whether that's another phone or a Bluetooth-enabled MP3 player. Moving into our phone, so that's where
Search
we would go in order to be able to add a phone in.
Select it once it is found.
There we go. Radio, fairly straightforward, so we can have that radio text showing, so what song is currently playing, or we can change our presets, so the number of pages that we've already gone through here. Next up, we've got our driver assistance settings, and this is where we get into a ton of different settings as well. So, big one to point out is going to be our cruise control. So we've either got normal, adaptive, or intelligent. Intelligent is going to be based off of the speed signs, so speed sign recognition, it's automatically going to adjust your speed as necessary. The adaptive one is the one that I do recommend, and the reason why is because it's automatically going to, it's essentially a stop and go. So you set your cruise control to your speed, let's say 110 on the highway. If the car in front of you slams on their brakes, or if they start to slow down, your car will automatically slow down. If they get out of the way or speed up, yours will pull back up to speed again. So it's one of those set it and forget it. You don't need to worry about constantly restarting your cruise control, or if you have a preference to go old school, you can do that here. Next up is going to be our lane keeping system. So the lane keeping system, you've got two options there, whether it's going to recenter you in your lane or it's going to give you a steering wheel shake. So the alert is exactly that. So as we start to veer over into a lane without signaling, it's going to shake the steering wheel a bit. The aid is going to recenter you and pull you back into your lane. And then the alert and the aid are going to do both. So it'll shake the steering wheel and pull you back in and recenter you in your lane. The intensity is going to be the intensity of the shake, whether it's high, normal, or low. And feel them out, it's your own personal preference there. Next up is going to be our pre-collision assist. So I do recommend keeping the pre-collision assist on, and the reason why is because there also is active braking and steering. Where that comes into play is if you're potentially going to get into collision, if you don't start to brake, the vehicle is automatically going to brake for you with active braking enabled. If for whatever reason you can't get out of the way, evasive steering is going to take over the steering wheel and it's going to crank the steering wheel out of the way for you, essentially either eliminating or minimizing the impact of the collision. Traffic sign recognition, so really straightforward there. It does show up on the instrument cluster there. And then there's a speed warning that you can throw on if you're going a little bit too fast than the posted speed limit. Our rear camera, we've got that enhanced park aid, which essentially, as I flip into reverse here, I'll show you what that looks like. So the park aid here, so we've got a series of different things that are going to show up along the side here if we start to get close to an obstacle there. But as you can see in the reverse here, we've got a beautiful, beautiful HD screen with a full 360-degree camera. Moving back out from here, we've got our blind spot system, which essentially is going to let us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. So in order to show you there, let's jump over and up. So we can just kind of make it out here, but there are, right there, there's a little, you can barely make it out, but it's going to glow orange whenever somebody's entered in the blind spot on either side of the vehicle there. So I do recommend keeping that one turned on. Now, if you do get the factory tow option, I do recommend doing that if you ever think you're going to tow something. It does give you the ability to extend the trailer, the blind spot, I should say, to cover the trailer. So all you have to do is enter the measurements of the trailer, and it's automatically going to let you know if anybody's entered the blind spot of not just your vehicle, but also of the trailer. So it's really, really useful feature to have. Moving from here, we've got our trailer sway control, and then our cross-traffic alert. So if there's a vehicle that's perpendicular from where we are, coming from our left or from our right-hand side, it's going to let you know that there's a potential collision. Last one is going to be our driver alert, which is tied into the lane keeping system. So if you veer over into another lane without signaling too many times, you will get an alert saying that you should probably rest. Next up, we're going to have some generic vehicle settings here. So we can choose how long we can idle the vehicle for. Easy entry exit is going to be whether or not the vehicle, what happens when you unlock the vehicle here. So the seat automatically going to adjust, which essentially means it's going to pull the seat back so that you can easily get inside of the vehicle. My Key gives you the ability to set up a key fob with certain limitations. So if you're giving the vehicle to the kids for the day, or you're playing a prank on your spouse, you can have it set up so that the vehicle can maybe only go past us, and it can't go faster than a certain mile per hour. Maybe you don't want them to go faster than 100 kilometers an hour. You've got the ability to do that by setting up an individual key. When it comes to the remote start setup, so we can either turn the remote start off completely or leave it on, and looking at what happens here. So with climate control, remote start the vehicle, is it automatically going to allow the vehicle to determine what the cabin temperature should be, or is it going to be based off of your last settings? Matter of personal preference there. Our seats and wheels, same idea. Is it going to adjust the seats and the wheel for you as we do that remote start? And then the last one is going to be the duration. So how long does the remote start last for? 5, 10, or 15 minutes? From here, we've got some options for our wipers. So our windows, I should say. So with the windows, we can do a remote open. Let's take a look and see how that looks. Using the key fob in order to remote roll the windows down is really straightforward. So taking a look at the fob here, all we're going to do is we're going to press and hold this unlock button. So we're going to press it 3 times. On the 3rd press, we're going to hold. So 1, 2, and 3 and hold. There we go. So as you can see, we've used that key fob in order to be able to remote roll the windows down. And from here, we've got our wipers. So wipers, we've got courtesy wipe when we turn the vehicle on, whether or not it wipes once. I do recommend leaving that one off, especially during the winter time. The last thing we want is to have the windshield wipers covered in ice and then it trying to, go left and right. You could potentially damage the motor there. From here, we've got our rain sensing wipers and a reverse wiper. So we do have the ability just off to the right-hand stick here. So we can adjust our windshield wipers doing that, so the speed and intensity there. But I do recommend keeping it on rain sensing because the vehicle is going to determine how fast or slow it should be going. And then we've got the ability to turn the reverse wiper off, so our rear windshield wiper, again, your call there. And then next up, power liftgate. So we can disable the switch on the outside of the vehicle. But again, whether or not you want that on, it is a safety setting there. Our lighting is going to be the vehicle lighting here. So auto high beam is going to be on automatically. I do recommend keeping it on. Could we use the stick in order to be able to turn it on ourselves? Absolutely. But with auto high beam, it's automatically going to turn the high beams on or off, just depending on the time of day. So if you're driving in a dark setting, it's going to turn them on. If the vehicle senses an oncoming vehicle, it's automatically going to dim them and then turn them off. And a couple more to point out. We've got our locks next. So we've got our auto unlock. We've got the remote unlock as well. So when we unlock the vehicle, do all doors get unlocked, or is it just the driver's door that gets unlocked? And from here, we've got our mirrors. So when you lock the vehicle with auto fold enabled, it's automatically going to bring those side view mirrors in for you. And lastly, on the very bottom here, we've got our door keypad code. So you do have the ability to get into the vehicle without the key fob, and that's literally just going to be a button on this driver's side door. So a series of buttons there. There's a 5-digit factory code, and then you can add in other codes here. You can either add it in on the screen or outside on the actual keypad itself. Looking at Ford Pass Connect now. So the vehicle is enabled with the built-in modem. You do need a data plan in order to be able to use that. So you can connect up to 10 devices, which is really, really neat. From here, we've got some more general settings. So general settings, we can change our language, English, Spanish, or French. We can change our temperature, whether that's Celsius or Fahrenheit. There we go. Measurement units, liters per 100, miles per gallon. Again, personal preference there. Change our pressure, tire pressure units, the beep that we're getting here. So we can turn that one on or off as well, just by pressing this button here. As you can see, that beep is now gone. And the other one to point out here is going to be our reset. So our reset there, if for whatever reason the screen's giving you issues, or if you're selling the vehicle, do a master reset, get rid of all the settings there, and it's going to reset it to factory defaults. Yeah, a couple of things to point out here. The vehicle does have a built-in modem, so you can connect through Wi-Fi at home as well. The benefit of doing that is that you can then turn on automatic updates, which means it's automatically going to update the vehicle settings for you. So I do recommend keeping that one on. It's a really, really straightforward process in order to be able to do that. Mobile apps, so you do have to be connected, and your phone has to be connected, I should say, in order for the mobile apps to work, whether that's done over Bluetooth or when you're physically connected through USB. Looking at the display now, a few options there. We can either turn the display off completely, press the button to turn it back on, or we can have a little bit more of a calming screen. So that calming screen there we go, as you can see. So it does take a little bit of the distraction away as you're driving. Button press again in order to jump back in. And let's get back into our settings there. Perfect. Okay, next up is going to be our voice control. So voice control, we've got a couple different options here. So the advanced mode essentially makes it so we don't get as many prompts in the vehicle as we go. I want you to listen to what that sounds like for a second here.
Please say a command.
Tune to 97.7.
Tuning to FM 97.7.
So as you can see, there was quite a little bit. We got that beginning message and that message afterwards letting us know that it's tuning. So if we turn the advanced mode on and do the same thing again, tune to 94.9. There we go. And if we look here, as you can see, it did change the station there, but it didn't give us as many messages. So I do recommend keeping that advanced mode on. Phone confirmation, when we make a phone call, it's going to confirm, letting us know if we're making that call. And then our voice command list is this list that comes up when we press the voice button on the steering wheel. Again, whether or not you want that to show up is a matter of personal preference. Jumping into our valet mode here. So valet mode essentially gives you the ability to lock the screen out by entering a 4-digit combination. So let's use something nice and difficult, 0000. Please don't use that as your combination, but as you can see here, the screen's now locked out. If we turn the car off and turn it back on again, that's still going to be there. You need to enter that 4-digit combination again in order to unlock everything. Really useful if you ever have a valet parking your vehicle so they can't look through your settings, your contacts, text messages, things like that. And on the last screen here, we've got two different options. So we've got ambient light. So ambient light's going to show in a few different spots on the vehicle. So we've got, let me show you here. There we go. And as you can see, so we are highlighted a little bit there. We can choose between a couple different colors there. And it's going to show up in a few other places on the vehicle. So again, matter of personal preference as to what color light you use. And then the last one is going to be our navigation. So we've already gone through those navigation settings there. So that's going to be the Sync 3 screen in a nutshell. Now, moving down the console a little bit here. So first things to point out at the top here, we've got the ability to turn the audio on or off just using this button here. So if we jump into the audio setting here, so we can adjust the volume from here. All right, a couple other things to point out. We can seek here. So we can either change between stations. If our phone's connected, we can change between songs. From here, we can also manually adjust if your passenger wants to change the station, or you can use your voice and using the steering wheel button there. Up at the top here, we've got our parking button, so that rear parking aid. So that beeping that we get as we're backing up, we can turn that on or off from here. Next one up is going to be our 4-way blinker, so our hazard lights there. And then this is going to be the camera button, so it gives us that 360 camera. Pressing this at the top here gives us the ability to look at the 360 view, a front partial view, or that front 180 degree view. That comes in real handy if you're getting out of an underground parking spot, or if you want to make sure that there aren't any pedestrians coming on the left or the right hand side of the vehicle. And pressing that button one more time will get rid of it there. Moving down a little bit. Now, one of the nice things, as I was mentioning, the Limited does have heated and cooled front seats. So we've got the ability to turn the heated seats on from here, or the cooled seats on the driver and the passenger side. We can turn on our heated steering wheel, by pressing this button here. Up along the top, we've got our max windshield defroster. From here, we can press this button in order to pull up where do we want the fan to blow to the windshield, to our face, or to our feet. We can close that here, or we can press the button here again to get rid of it. We can turn the air conditioning or the heat on. So this is the button here, air conditioning or our max air conditioning from here. And then we've got our ability to adjust the fan speed from here. Now it is dual zone climate control, I should say. So driver and passenger side can be different, just again depending on personal preference there. So if you've got a passenger that likes things a little bit warmer, you've got the capability to adjust it from here. Moving down on the bottom, we've got a couple more. Auto setting is automatically going to let the vehicle determine what the cabin temperature should be. This is going to be our rear windshield defroster. We've got our generic menu button here. Now by pressing this, it also now gives us the dual button. So if we had dual zone climate control enabled, which we do because the driver and passenger side are different, dual is going to show up here. Now if we press the dual button here, it's automatically going to default to whatever that driver's side setting is. From here, we've got our circulation button. So that's going to circulate air throughout the cabin of the vehicle. And then we've also got rear climates here. So we can control the rear climate as well. We can lock it out so the people in the back can adjust that. We can turn it on or off and adjust the fan and the temperature from up here. Moving down the cluster a little bit here. So as you can see, we've got a little bit of storage here. So we're just going to press this button here. We've got a traditional cigarette lighter adapter, regular USB, as well as our USB micro from here. Now we do have the ability to toss our phone down here as well. There is the ability to add our phone in here, and right at the very back here, there is another part there. So it's really, really nice. Ford's really thought that one ahead when they've come down to the practicality of the design here. Lock that back down into place, and looking here, we've got our traditional cup holders and a few buttons to press, to point out here, I should say. So this first one here is going to be our parking brake. We're going to lift up in order to turn our parking brake on. In order to turn it off, you're going to press the brake and then press that down, and that's going to turn the parking brake off. Auto hold is essentially going to hold the vehicle in place when you're stopped. So you come up to a light, you can fully brake. Once you've fully braked, the auto hold button is going to be engaged, and you can take your foot off the brake and the vehicle won't move. From here, we've got our auto engine start stop. That's the one that's automatically going to kill power when we get to a stop as well. Again, it doesn't turn on all the time. It's essentially the vehicle's decision whether or not it happens. If it drives you crazy, if you're not a fan, you can turn it off every time you start the vehicle up. Two more buttons to point out. This one here is going to be for our traction control. We can turn traction control on or off, or we've got our hill descent control. So where that comes into play is if you're going down a very steep hill, with this button pressed, it's going to control the speed of the vehicle, and you just need to worry about that steering wheel instead. Other one to point out is going to be our different drive modes here. So as a default, we're going to be on normal. We've also got the ability to switch between our eco mode, our sport mode, tow haul, and then on the opposite side of it, so going back through again, we've got our slippery, our trail, and then our deep snow or sand conditions. And then from here, we've also got our park. So we've got a rotary knob here in order to switch gears. So our park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then our manual mode. Now, one of the nice things about the vehicle is that we do have the ability to use these paddle shifters now. So if you need to drop down a few gears in order to be able to speed up a little bit if you want to, you've got that ability to do it. Moving down the steering wheel here, let's start off on the left-hand side. So at the very bottom here, we've got our mute button, so we can either turn the volume up or down, or we can mute it by pressing this button here. Now, the vehicle, as I mentioned, is equipped with adaptive cruise control. In order to turn the adaptive cruise on, we're just going to literally make sure that we press the button here. And as you can see here, we've got a few lanes that have shown up there. That essentially means that the adaptive cruise is on. At the top left here, this is going to control how close or how far away we are from the vehicle in front of us. So you've got a few different settings there. Again, matter of personal preference as to how close or far away you are. In order to be able to set the cruise control, once you're at a speed that you'd like, you're going to press this up or down, so it's going to set the speed for you. And then we can either increase by lifting this up or decrease by lifting this down, 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. Now, this actually is kind of perfect. So if you ever get a warning coming up on the center screen here, in order to get rid of it, we're just going to press the OK button here. So we're just going to press that button in here, and as you can see, it's gone away. Two other buttons to point out here. We can cancel the cruise control here, and then we can turn it off completely pressing that button again. Last one over here is going to be our lane centering system. So we can turn that lane centering system on or off. Again, matter of personal preference there. On to the right-hand side here. So we've got a few buttons here at the very bottom. We've got our voice command button. That's going to let us navigate, or we can change the radio station or make a phone call. The buttons here, so we can, using this one here, answer a call. We can hang up, or we can change between stations or songs if we're listening to a Bluetooth-enabled player. Up at the top here, we've got our generic back button. We can go up or down, and we've got our menu button. So going up and down here, as you can see, we've got a few different options. One thing to point out on our trip counter, if we want to reset the value, we're just going to press and hold this OK button here. And as you can see, it's reset the values there. Jumping into our menu, we can select a number of different screens, so whatever ones show up on that home screen there. Again, really a matter of personal preference as to what shows up there. And then pressing our back button will let us go back to this previous screen. Next up is going to be our audio, so we can choose between AM, FM, or Sirius XM. And there we go, and jumping back. Navigation, really handy that we can go through this instrument screen in order to look at the navigation here. So we can either go to your home, previous destinations, favorites, or nearby point of interest. And then we've also got our phone setting there. So if our phone was connected, it would show up here. We can make phone calls and etc. directly from that menu there. And that's going to be this instrument cluster here in a nutshell. Moving up, we've got our left and our right-hand side stick. So let's start off on the left-hand side here. Now we do have the auto lights on. So as you can see there, we've got the ability to turn our high beams on or off as well. So if you want to manually do that, you can do that here. On the very end of the stick here, as you can see, we've got this little knob here. So that's going to turn the lane keeping system on or off. So you know the lane keeping system's on when you see this show up here. And then from here, we've got our blinkers, left hand, right side. And from here, we've got the ability to control our windshield wipers. So this one here is going to be for the windshield wiper fluid. In order to work your front windshield, you're going to pull in between, in towards you there, I should say. And that's going to automatically, let me show you here. There we go. So that's going to give us some windshield wiper fluid in the front, or we can push the stick away from us in order to use the rear windshield wiper. Moving off to the right-hand side here, we've also got this little knob at the back here. That's going to control whether or not the rear windshield wiper comes on or not. Okay, moving up above us here. First thing to point out at the very top here is you can see we've got 3 little buttons. So if you've got a garage door opener at home that's remote, you can program your code in here. Really, really straightforward to do that. Up at the top here, we've got our sunglasses holder. And we've got a series of buttons at the top here. So the one at the top is going to be for our driver's side cabin light, our passenger side cabin light, or you can turn on all the cabin lights here. From here, we've also got the ability to turn on or off whether or not the cabin lights are going to turn on when you open up the door. So again, that one's always a matter of personal preference. From here, if you get the sunroof, these buttons will be here. If you don't get the sunroof, it's not going to be here. The one that's furthest away, so closest to the passenger, is going to be for the shade. So we can press that button once in order to be able to open or close the shade here. So as you can see there, the shade is now closing. And in order to be able to open up the moonroof now, I should say, we've got these buttons here. So we're just going to, the button that's closest away is going to either vent it, or we can close it. And then in order to be able to fully open, we're just going to press the away button here. And that's going to open it up the majority of the way. One more button press will open it up just that little bit more. And then pressing the button again is going to close it up for you completely. All right, perfect. Next up, let's take this thing for a spin. Now, it does have the same 2.3 liter engine that's in the XLT. However, these are true leather seats, so it's going to be fairly comfortable from that perspective. And it's also got heated and cooled front. Yeah, it's got heated and cooled front seats, and it's a true leather seat. So it's going to be fun. All right. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, yes, power's out. That makes sense. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah. I'm still really surprised at how well this 2.3 liter engine does. Very comfortable. Oh, that's nice. Very cool. Okay. So the big question of, do I look at the XLT trim level? Do I look at the limited? It really comes down to a matter of, I guess, first of all, is going to be your budget. So what budget are you currently working with? And it's also a matter of features. Like, do you want leather seats? Do you want cooled seats? Are you okay without it? Do you need that 360 camera? There are a ton of questions that you should ask yourself when you try to figure out which vehicle you should purchase. But that's where having somebody that knows what they're talking about really comes into play. Okay, so one thing to point out is that the auto start-stop system has engaged there, so it's turned the engine off for me there. Here we go. Very nice. Very nice. I'm still always so surprised at how powerful this 2.3 turbo is, and especially with a bigger size vehicle like this. But it works well, so I'm not going to complain. Now, as I mentioned, it does have the ability to tow this specific one up to 5,300 pounds. So it's going to take care of the majority of boats, small trailers, things like that. But again, make sure that you get the factory tow option if you're ever going to consider towing something. Could you save a couple bucks doing it aftermarket? Yeah, but it's not going to be able to tow as much. It's not going to work the same as the factory option. Definitely something to consider if you're doing a build or if you're working on locating one from a dealer that's already built. Trying to go over some bumps here as well too, just to get a feeling of what it's like. And one of the nice things about the Explorers is that we are looking at all-wheel drive, and it's an intelligent all-wheel drive as well. So it's automatically going to flip you into that all-wheel drive mode. It's going to automatically adjust which wheel gets what power on the fly. So it's a really, really useful feature to have. So we do have that blind spot system now. I'm going to show you what that's like. Look out for the little yellow, there we go, so that orange light pops up there because somebody is now in the blind spot of the vehicle. And as you can see, so that's gone away there. And changing lanes over here. Right, so in this test of the vehicle, I do want to use the adaptive cruise control. So I'm going to make sure that adaptive cruise is currently on. I want to have it so that it's the furthest possible away as well. So what that's going to give me an example of is when I'm on the highway, I want you to really understand what it's like as we use that adaptive cruise system. And actually, you don't even need to be on the highway. We can literally be on the road here using it. So once you get up to the speed that you'd like, you're just going to press the set button here. But as you can see, as the vehicle in front of me is slowing down, the vehicle itself is automatically slowing down for me as well. So it really is a true stop and go. It can literally bring your vehicle to a complete stop before bringing you back up to speed. So it's really, really handy. Okay, let's give it a little bit of power, see how it opens up. Very nice. Oh, that's great. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn that adaptive system back on again. So again, same thing. So I've got the vehicle speed set to 99 kilometers an hour right now. Vehicle in front of me is obviously slowed down, but they're picking back up. So my foot's off the gas, but it's picking my vehicle back up already, automatically, without me needing to do anything. Now the lane keeping system I've also turned on as well, so I'm going to slowly start to veer into another lane, and it's pulling me back over, and it's recentered me. It's a really, really great system. It's a super smart system, which I absolutely love. So let's go forward here. I'm going to leave the adaptive cruise control on, especially as we get off the highway here, because that's going to give us the real feeling of what it's like, again, as we slow down. So we saw it there just a second ago before I got on the highway, but this is how it's actually going to work in real life as we go. Where you'll really notice the adaptive cruise side of things is if you've got a tendency to speed a little bit on the highway. Let's slow her down a little bit here. Okay, so I'm going to set the adaptive cruise at 60. And let's see. There we go. All right, so Let's cancel out the cruise here. So the speed limit right now, we are looking at a 60-kilometer speed. And again, the auto engine start-stop, it did kick in again. So it really does. It does it when it wants to. It doesn't happen every time. It happens quite frequently, though. Okay, same thing. I want to try that adaptive system again. So the adaptive cruise is on once I get up to the set speed here. So we're at 60 kilometers an hour. There we go. Okay, so I've set it 60. Well, I'm set at 60 right now. Truck in front of me is going obviously a little bit slower. So let me decrease the distance there, but same thing, like my foot's off the brake, my foot's off the gas. The car is essentially automatically going to, I should slow down here again. Yeah, there we go. And then when they pull out of the way, it's going to pull me right back up to that speed again. So it's a really, really amazing system. So let's increase the distance there so that I can get a little bit closer. Now that's one thing to point out. There are 4 different distance settings there. So it's going to adjust how close or how far away you are from the vehicle in front of you. Same thing, the vehicle should sense that there we go, cars are slowing down, and look at that, it's braking me, and it's taken me down almost to a complete stop. And then same thing, as the vehicle speed picks up here, my foot's off the gas completely, and it's automatically picking me right back up to that speed again. Really, really love how this adaptive cruise control system works. And it works the same, obviously, as we're seeing here, whether you're on the highway or whether you're just driving in regular traffic. So this is the adaptive cruise side of things. There is the intelligent cruise as well, which is essentially going to set the speed based off of whatever the current road speed is. So if we're looking here, the current speed is set at 60. So that's the speed on the road that we're on right now. So with the intelligent cruise control, it's automatically going to set our speed based off of whatever the speed is on the road instead. So it's a really, really neat system to use. It's funny, I actually think that was my buddy in that blue Mustang there. Oh, that's great. Very, very neat. Well, as expected, the feel of the engine is obviously the same. Whether it's the 2.3 liter turbo engine, it's the same engine in the XLT or in the Limited, but where it really differentiates is using that adaptive cruise and really using it. But like the cooled seats are on right now, and I've got to say, like, I am falling in love with cooled seats. Like, I was never really a big fan of them before, but being in vehicles with leather seats in the summertime, it is literally a huge butt saver. Well, even with it being a bigger vehicle, it handles really, really well around those turns. Same thing, going over bumps. Like, you can obviously feel them, but it absorbs it really, really nicely. So one of the nice things about the Explorer is that it's a fuller size SUV. So if the Escape or the Edge, you'd be looking at the Edge. If that's a little bit too small for you and you need a bit more space, then looking at the next size up. So looking at the Explorer as an option instead would be a really, really great choice. Oh. Here we go. Let's see. Oh, people are going to listen. Oh, they did. They listened. Oh, that's great. Oh, is this girl going to let me? Oh, yeah, she's going to let me go. That's awesome. Oh, come on. No, maybe not. All right. Psych. Looks like we've got some power out right now. I believe what had happened was a truck actually ran into a power pole a little bit further up the street here. Ugh. People. Oh, this is nice. nice. So as I was mentioning, where this really comes into play for this specific vehicle, I should say, is if you're looking for something where you need a 6 or a 7 passenger vehicle, because you do have the ability to change out the center row there, whether the center row is going to have 3 seats or dual captain's chairs instead. There are a couple options that are available there. Beautiful. Alright, that's going to be our front warning system, but there isn't anything that I've hit there, so that's good. It's very, very hypersensitive. Perfect, there we go. Okay, and we have stopped here. Off. Well guys, that was my review and the complete overview of the 2020 Ford Explorer Limited Edition. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned a little bit. If you have any questions about the vehicle, please make sure that you ask them down below. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel and make sure you like the video. It helps the channel grow and it helps me determine what kind of videos you guys like. If there's anything that you want me to review in the future, drop it down below. But until I see you next time, stay safe. Talk to you soon. Oh, that's really, really neat. Oh, I didn't even notice this before. Oh, there's a wireless charging pad. So it's got the actual charging pad down here. I thought it was just storage, but it actually is a charging pad. Here, hold on. Let me take you out here and show you. There we go. So right here, we've got a wireless charging pad down here instead. How cool is that? I didn't even notice that. The things you learn as you play around.